Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And today, Tom, I'm coming to you from Chicago. I'm a quarantine buddy for my granddaughter, Florence, who we're still dealing with the COVID epidemic. One of those Monday mornings.
Yeah.
And someone in her class tested positive, so she's got a quarantine, and I'm here to help out and trying to get her signed up for class. But so far, we've been unsuccessful trying to do a virtual class. But
she's smart enough that she doesn't need class. She's too smart as it is.
Yeah. Well, she'd go for that. I think she'd like it.
Hey, I know we want to talk hockey, but I've got a breaking story for you.
Yeah.
So a good friend of mine, a female friend of mine, listens to our show. And I don't know if you can take this as a compliment or a little bit of a slight. I'm not sure. But the sound of your voice puts her to sleep all the time. So when she needs to go have a rest, she puts the show on and listens to your voice.
Well, I have that tendency to put people to sleep. So I don't know how to view that.
So, we had teamwork here too. Larry Melnick recognized that I had my earbuds in or my earpiece and I didn't need that. So I don't know. Thank God he's here. All right. We got everything wrapped up, all the personal stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Before we get started, though, what did you cook on Sunday?
I made a turkey wrap. It was kind of the Asian flavor to it. So ground turkey, some Chinese 5-spice, some soy sauce, a little bit of rice vinegar. So it had that kind of Asian flavor to it. So pretty simple stuff, but very healthy. A lot of vegetables in it and spinach and peppers, onion, garlic, all that.
Well, I thought a little bit about you. We've talked about my wife who's gone to a vegan lifestyle, and she hadn't been eating meat before, but would eat some fish, and now she doesn't do either eggs or fish. But she's all plant-based, and there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken announced that they were doing an all plant-based.
I saw that
chicken nuggets. Now, my wife has never done chicken nuggets, even when she was eating meat, but my daughter, who's also a vegetarian, was intrigued by that the idea of sort of a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Impossible. I don't think it's not impossible. I think it's beyond. Yeah. And so my wife said, we should slide through there and get those fake chicken nuggets, and then we'll review them for Aaron. So we went through and she got them. They give you like 5 nuggets, and it looks like, chicken nuggets. My joke was, of course, that really it's the same nuggets they were serving before, because there probably wasn't any chicken in that either. So, but no offense, Kentucky Fried Chicken. But anyway, she did try them, and I did not eat them, but she said they were okay, and but she said she took I think she got 6, or she got 5, and she ate 2, and then took 3 home, and then put them in a wrap, and then put all the.
So Kevin's frozen on us here. I'm looking up these. I've got mixed reviews here online about these chicken nugget. Fake chicken nuggets. So
yeah. So anyway, she put it in a wrap and put all of her vegetables and things, and said it was edible. So for that.
I wonder, do they fry them? I mean, what's the health? Do we know the?
I'm sure she does. I don't. I didn't quiz her that deeply about it. But I'm guessing they're fried. And the one thing about the plant-based diet, which is a lot of like a White Castle burger is actually fewer calories than the plant-based burger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they that's usually it's soy. That's that has some calorie density to it. So
I've never had White Castle. Have you eaten White Castle?
Oh yeah. Oh. No, that was I grew up in a town that had this restaurant called Bray's, which were smaller hamburgers, sort of a White Castle-like size, maybe just slightly bigger. But, those were my go-to burgers. So I really didn't have a need to kind of grow up and eat, White Castles, but I've had them for sure. So, but when I first started going to Bray's hamburgers, they were $7 for $1, which was in the early 1960s.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
All right, let's talk some hockey. I wanted to talk about a bunch of things today. First of all, Elliot Friedman has reported that the Washington Capitals have considered perhaps being involved in the Evander Kane sweepstakes, if we can call it that. The attraction to this too is that he's willing to sign for next to nothing, just to get an opportunity. So you're not really changing your cap outlook, which is important for a lot of contenders. So anyway, I don't know how you see him fitting in Washington any differently than Edmonton, or you just don't think he fits anywhere, I would assume.
Well, I mean, the only places I think he fits in is that those real strong locker rooms like Tampa. I mean, and I put Washington in that category. Teams that have won here recently know how to win, have those character players. I just, again, I don't know I think part of it is, and I don't blame the general managers, they've got to take a look, right? If they don't take a look, the fan base, if they lose in the first round of the playoffs, is going to be saying, and the owner is going to say, well, why didn't you even take a look at this guy, right? You didn't pay any attention to it at all. So I do think if I'm a general manager, I'm certainly taking a look at it, but then I'm really thinking long and hard, okay, man, is it really worth the risk or not? And we haven't heard anything about his arbitration case, right? That he's got.
No, I don't really even know where in the process it is. They really haven't said much.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but if he's already talking that he's willing to sign for next to nothing, for obviously a new contract, that tells me that they're assuming they're not going to win that case. That means that contract he signed in San Jose will not be upheld, and they're going to lose the grievance. But that's my take on it. But
yeah. Well, I mean, and then I guess the other aspect is we don't know because there could be further league suspensions for violation of the protocol. Involving, he left, which is the reason for the Sharks believing they can terminate the contract is that he violated the protocol. But it's really interesting. Well, and then the other thing, the Edmonton Oilers finally won, and of all people, Leon Draisaitl, shit's not surprising, had a big game,
right?
Got him going, and that's what you look for. You look for top players to lead you. You know what? I really do look like I'm in the witness protection program here. So, yeah,
you do.
I think I need a little more light.
You want to be like Larry Melnick. I think people are suggesting here. That's what Larry does when he gets on the show. He doesn't have any lighting. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's snowy here in Chicago, by the way. But
nice. Hey, before we forget too, and I know it happened on Friday, but we lost Clark Gillies obviously on Friday after a battle with cancer.
Yeah, we did. I was going to get to that. I was, but why don't we just do it now? I was going to sort of do a lengthy thing about it. Yeah, that's just a sad thing. I know you knew him well. You battled against him as a competitor. You've had him on your show. But there's two things. First of all, he was kind of a gentle giant. Like he was a fierce competitor on the ice, but off the ice, he was real gentlemanly. Like I always enjoyed speaking with him. I hadn't talked to him in years, though, not since the end of his playing days. But
he was so funny when we knew each other. We charity events around the area, so we'd say hello to each other. But really, it's like, oh God, don't get him mad kind of mentality. And then it was probably like 2 years ago when we were doing our Thursday show with Ron Greshner, Dave Maloney, at that time Ron Duguay, now with James Patrick and Larry Melnick and others. And he contacted me on Facebook. I was so surprised. He says, Tom, can I come on the show? He's like, and I mean this in a very good way. He was like a little kid. He was so excited to come on the show. And he came on, and it was just like we were all brothers, that we'd all played together. He, very complimentary towards us and our teams that we had back then. Although they beat us all the time, he really felt that we had a chance to win the cup if we could beat them. So, but and then we kept in touch off, not just on the screen, talking about other stuff, doing other shows with people, and just everybody. I was lucky enough to play with John Tonelli and Bob Bourne in Los Angeles, who played with Clark, and Bob Bourne actually was very good friends with Clark. And I spoke to both of them on Saturday, and. They were sad, obviously, that they'd lost Clark, and sad for his family and everything. But they just talked so much about what a great life he had. What a great person he was to other people, helping so much in the community. How much his family meant to him. 3 daughters he has. Actually, his one daughter is married to Bob Bourne's son, so they were very close. So it's again, you're very sad. Obviously, you're sad for the family for the loss and everything, but. He's one of those guys that he just seemed like he got the most out of life. He just was this fantastic person everybody loved. So.
Yeah. And oftentimes that we've talked about this in the past, where a line is often just a twosome and a third guy, but that really wasn't the case with the Bossy Trache line. Sure, Bossy and Trache had a chemistry, but Gillies brought an element to that line that made it even more prolific, in my opinion. He did a lot of the heavy lifting, in the corners. And in front of the net. That was a big loss, and it kind of shocking too. I'd seen Jiggs McDonald, the former broadcaster, had posted on Facebook that stay tuned after the Islanders game for an important announcement, and I wondered what that was. And then to hear that it was the announcement of the death of Clark Gillies, it was just, pretty stunning. And
I think that, without going into too many details, family's not mentioned, but my understanding is it was a battle with cancer that came on pretty quickly, and there wasn't much they could do for him. So,
it's sad to say. It's interesting. You brought up, the camaraderie you felt with him, even though you guys were, arch rivals. But I've noted through the years that the bond between players, even if they didn't play on the same team, is similar to like military. Like, a Marine will meet another Marine, and regardless of where they served or what they did, it's kind of a semper fi type thing. And that's what I feel with NHL players now. You see that, and even if you didn't end up on a team, and in the modern game, guys move around so much that you see maybe a fifth of the league during your time in the league, because you played. I mean, you played with two teams, but you played with a lot of different guys. Like, how many guys do you think you played with?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, my first year, obviously Freddie Sherrill was fired partway through the year, and then Craig Pratchett brought in Herb Brooks as the coach. And although we went to the semifinals against the Islanders, and ultimately lost to them, Herb changed the whole team around. So half the team that was there went to the semifinals, was probably gone the next year. So that was an example. And when Phil Esposito came in, he was Trader Phil and trading everybody. So just with the Rangers alone, geez, I'm going to guess that I've probably played with 100 different players with the Rangers.
That's what I was going to guess too, 100, and then probably with the Kings, probably 40.
40, yeah, I would say 40 is a good number. And that's interesting to say that. Yeah, I think of all the guys that I played with that went to different teams. Yeah.
100. So yeah, you might, you're pushing toward 150 different teammates.
Yeah. And it is funny too, right? You're dead on, because you almost look forward to getting to know the guys you played against. Brad Smith, Motor City Smitty, we had a great fight at Madison Square Garden. I think it was my first or second year in the league, and we just, like, he's a scout now with Colorado, I believe. He lives up on the West Coast, and we're like best buddies now. We just we think the world of each other. So I think it is when you really go to battle with somebody, against somebody. Even some of the old Philadelphia Flyers, which we all hate. Brian Propp and I are friends online. Larry Melnick's friends with Rod Flockhart, and guys we never really played with, but we're all pretty tight. It's really pretty cool when you get to go to an event and you see some guy that you played against. You really don't know that well, and you just hit it off right away. So, and that was definitely a thing. And Clark was one of those guys too that I think everybody just had so much respect for him, although he was so tough. There's other tough players that I don't think people respected enough, because they kind of, like, they wanted to hurt people. Clark never wanted to hurt people. There's a famous story when he fought Eddie Hossbar at Madison Square Garden and broke his jaw. So it's right up at the top. The teeth were still in the jaw, but broke the jaw, and the teeth came down. It was gruesome to watch. And then they played together later on in Buffalo. And Clark tells the stories about how he invited Eddie Hossbar to come and stay with him at his home. And they were sitting at the kitchen table one time. I think it was Clark's son or whatever. I think is correct. Asked Eddie Hossbar if he had ever lost any teeth right in front of Clark. It was pretty funny. He said, because obviously, yeah, he lost some teeth, all right. And Clark knocked him out. So,
wow, yeah. It's interesting too. I have to check this. No, okay, not important. The idea, I was just thinking while we were talking about this too, when you go to school, in high school and stuff, there's almost like a, I I don't want to say, it's the wrong word. I don't want to say that. It's going to sound, but there's kind of a ranking system. There's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the star athletes and the cheerleaders and all that. And, the fives are the highest and the ones are the, guys that are, not very popular. And ones don't hang out with fives. They hang out with fours. The fours hang out with threes and all that. And then over time, though, that becomes eroded by, and I'm saying this just from talking to people because I've actually never been to any of my high school reunions.
Right.
But anyway, over time, as you go to reunions, like everybody becomes friends.
Yeah.
Like the mix and everything else, because all that nonsense that went on when you were in high school just doesn't exist. And you're just, people in the human race who share the common bond of having gone to the same school in the same class. And, people that you wouldn't have considered being friends with in high school, now all of a sudden, you're, oh, it's good to see you. What have you been up to? That kind of thing, so.
And it's the same thing with players too, like they may be a star player or a guy that's a fourth line player. It doesn't matter after a while. They're players.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of that, did you, how many minutes do you think you were averaged in a game?
I'm going to say 23 minutes, probably in that range.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the game's changed obviously since you played. We have shutdown pairings, and obviously you would have been on shutdown.
Yep.
But who got more minutes than you? Who you were playing with?
Well, probably Barry Beck would have. He played all situations: power play, penalty killing, regular shift. So I was the guy that would play the regular shift, rarely on the power play, as you know. Although you saw me once.
I did, and I called you immediately.
Yeah. But I was always killing penalties, either first or second group that killed penalties. So there'd be other players. James Patrick probably got more ice time because he was playing all the roles. Ron Gresher was more, regular shift and power play, although he killed some penalties. So Barry Beck for sure. Actually, it was interesting because when Barry Beck would get hurt, I was assistant captain normally, and a lot of times I would become captain. Not all the times, but sometimes Herb actually made me captain one time. And I it's interesting topic because I played more. I probably did more when Barry Beck wasn't there because I felt like, okay, when Barry's there, that's his role. My role is the secondary role. So I really thought we talked this before about playing your role on the team, and people would come to me sometimes and say, why don't you play like that when Barry's in the lineup? So, well, because Barry's doing it. I just felt important that I had a role and I had to play that role. It's interesting.
I was going to bring it up too, just because it struck me as it gave me a chuckle. I don't know why, but see how you feel about it. Bob Duff, a great historian who I work with in Detroit hockey now, really knows a lot about the original six hockey era as a real historian. He told me there's a passage in Marcel Pronovo's book, which is, I don't know, must be 10, 15 years old, maybe longer, but about he and Bob Golden. He believes he and Bob Golden were the first defensemen to just, when you go back in your zone and you're starting out, you're trying to do transition, that two defensemen will play catch with the puck going across. Marcel wrote in his book that he and Bob Golden.
We lost their big man again. People don't know Kevin is in Chicago babysitting, taking care of his grandchild. So we lost you there. Yeah, okay. But he was Bob Golden said to Marcel, when we get back in the puck in the defensive zone and lines are changing, when they start to come after you, play it over to me, and then they'll come after me, and I'll play it over back to you, and then we'll start that way because now all of a sudden we've got the four checkers, facing away from where the puck is. Let's do that. And so they say they were the first guy. So I don't know, that would have been in the 1950s. So, it seems like a simple thing. It made me laugh when I read about it, that they had to be the first defenseman to do that. But that reminds me so much of a Nick Futillo, Herbie Brooks story. And I know I've told this before, but it used to be hilarious because especially at Madison Square Garden where Nick was a fan favorite, we would pass up to Nicky, and Herb would always want Nicky to go forward, but Nicky would want to curl back and get going like a big loop, the crowd would go crazy, and Nick was going 100 miles an hour. So, in fact, Herb would say to us, "Don't pass up to Nicky. Don't pass it to Nicky." And I remember, I'll never forget, I was out there on the ice one time with Dave Maloney, and I'm going like, I was a younger player. Dave was more the veteran. I said, "Dave, what do we do?" He says, "Pass it to Nicky. Pass it to Nicky." We all wanted to see Herb go nuts, and he would do it. And Herb loved Nicky too. He loved him to have him on the team. But when Nicky would circle back and Herb's on the bench, said, "No, Nicky, no." Oh man, it was funny. It was fun times.
Yeah. Well, everybody's kind of got their style, to be sure. I was watching the game the other night and saw something. And I thought, I got to get Lades to talk about this because this is it goes either way. The Red Wings are playing the Nashville Predators 2-1 game at the end of the second. And the Red Wings were down 2-0 in that game. And Benning, the defenseman for Nashville, and Bertuzzi get into a cross-check high stick encounter.
Oh.
Which results in a fight.
Right.
And Bertuzzi's just been hot. He's got something like 10 goals in his last 14 games. He's really had a tremendous season. And he ends up with 7 minutes. Benning ends up with 7 minutes.
Right.
Now, if you're Blashill, the coach, how do you feel about that? Now, you're in a 2-1. You're trailing. You're going to start the third period with your top tied for the league team leading goal scoring is going to be in the penalty box. I
don't want him fighting at all ever under any. Well, I guess if your team's out of a game or they're way up in a game and he wants to settle a score with somebody or stick up for a teammate, but yeah, that talented player, he could get hurt his hands fighting. It's just like the game has changed. There used to be a purpose to fighting before. Now I don't see the purpose. Like two guys go and have to get mad at each other. And I think Bertuzzi is a great player. I know you watch him more too, and he seems like a really unselfish player. But to me, that's even like a selfish thing. Like you can't let it's not a good trade-off, right? If I'm Nashville, I'm happy about that trade-off, but I don't want my guy.
Yeah. Let's put this in real terms. Benning is a sixth defenseman.
Yeah, totally.
Going off for a top line, high scoring, gritty guy. And Bertuzzi has really been a catalyst for this team, really all season. So
yeah, bad trade-off, totally. Yeah, you love the fact that he's got that fire in him that he wants to stick up for himself and battle the opposition. But yeah, and again, from what you've told me, I haven't watched him nearly as much. He doesn't seem selfish at all, but that is kind of a selfish play for your team. It seems weird to say that, but it's just they need him on the ice. There's no question.
Yeah, he's had an incredible season, and what an opportune time. He was talked about as being the only unvaccinated NHL player, and Steve Yzerman made it clear he wasn't happy about that. He can't play in Canada, and yet he's come out, and he ended up getting COVID, but so did a lot of vaccinated players on the team.
Yeah.
So,
it is interesting. That's kind of old news now, right? I thought that would linger on more, but yeah.
No, it really hasn't. Although, it does when the team goes to Canada and he can't go.
Yeah.
That's not, and because they really don't have the depth to be able to sustain that without him. So.
How about Montreal, speaking of Canada, hiring that Kent Hughes, former agent, who never worked on the team side, so they hired him as general manager. Interesting.
Yeah, but that, we saw that a lot. That was Brian Burke. That was Pierre Lacroix. That was
but Brian Burke started as assistant general manager with Pat Quinn, right, and then worked his way up. But Lacroix jumped right in as general manager. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people think Pat Brisson could do that.
Right. And again, he's got Jeff Gorton there, and I'm sure they worked together quite a bit before signing players. From what I hear, everybody that I talked to was used as one of those respected agents. He's a former player.
But is that the same really as a GM, assistant GM role? Kent Hughes? When you got Gordon there, that's the question I asked this week in my notebook we see that now with Brian Burke in Pittsburgh. We see it with Jimmy Rutherford. We see it now in Montreal. Is that a fad or a trend?
I think it's a trend. George McPhee in Vegas, same thing.
Right.
I think it's. To say that Jeff Gorton or Jimmy Rutherford or Brian Burke are not going to have a say in what happens to the team, that's not accurate. I can't believe you get those strong personalities in there. especially with Gordon. I mean, he was hired first and then goes up and hires Hughes. So I'm sure he's going to hire somebody that he knows he can work with. And those two are going to make decisions together. It isn't just the general manager, making all decisions. And I think that's, I mean, obviously you've got to have that right relationship where they can get their heads together. And I'm sure with Jimmy Rutherford, he's that veteran guy that's done it before. Anybody that's going to come in underneath him as general manager has got to understand that, they're working together on things, which is, I think, good. So,
yeah, I mean, you wonder, like, how much different is it than a GM assistant GM relationship?
Yeah, right. Good
Yeah,
point.
I think it is different because I think the day by day stuff is being handled by the GM. So in other words, I think they're actually doing the negotiating for the, the trades and so forth. But they probably are fulfilling the wishes of the director of hockey operations as well.
I agree. So our roving reporter, Susan Brooks here, obviously a little favoring the Rangers a little bit. Who had Chris Kreider battling over the top scorer midway through the season? And Susan's really pushing for Kreider to be MVP. People watching him play in New York here, I mean, the knock against Chris Kreider before was that he would show you how great he could be, but he didn't do it consistently. And this year he is doing it consistently. Got a hat trick the other night. I guess you got to throw him in that, top 10 for at least top 10 for MVP this year.
Yeah. I don't think, he wouldn't be my favorite. I think, we got to look at the goalie, Shesterkin, for MVP.
Yep, absolutely.
I just saw some stats, advanced stats. They're not everyone's cup of tea, but I've gotten more into them as I've gotten older, which is really counterintuitive. Usually, you get.
Oh, happy birthday, by the way, too. That's right. Forgot.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I just wrote on Facebook before I got on about the fact that when I took my first journalism class, which was just after the Paleozoic era, hundreds of years ago. I had a professor named Kurt Stadfeld, who was a bit pompous, to say the least, but he was a very good journalism prof. And one of our assignments was write a story about a woman about to reach her 100th birthday. So I wrote this story and I said that this woman celebrated her 100th birthday. And in the margins of my paper, when it came back, with the word celebrated circled, saying, people over the age of 21 observe their birthdays. They don't celebrate them. And I've always carried that with me. The lesson is to be careful in your word choices and so forth. And but over time, I've realized that he was right in his lesson, but wrong about the word celebrate, because I think you celebrate birthdays because you're still here. Like you're happy to be with your family and everything, and still enjoying life to the fullest. And so that's kind of what I wrote today, just how my journalism career has sort of colored my thinking.
What era was that again? What era did you use?
Paleozoic.
Wow, that's a nice one.
That's old. I'm old. I mean, it's really, we're pushing 50 years.
Wow.
So when I took that class when I was 18, so not quite 50 years.
67 now?
Pardon me?
67 now?
No, 66.
66. Sorry, I did not want to add the extra year.
Yeah, well, that's all right. 66, 67, it's all relative. So,
and I hate to even bring this subject up, but did you see the story of that racism that happened?
I did, and I just, every time I see one of those, I think, why are we still here?
Oh, I know.
Like, why is this such a big deal?
The good thing I see is out of that the vast majority, if not everybody, is just like, what are they just condemning it totally, right? There's nobody, you can't argue in any way that that's the right way to act, and especially
it's ridiculous that people are still acting that way. Like, I don't, the attention that we've paid to make sure everybody knows what's appropriate and inappropriate, and you can't say, I didn't mean it, or it's just awful.
Yeah, if he tries to say, though, I was just mad and lost my head, but that was what was inside of you. That's
right. That's the problem, and I just cannot believe we're still at a time where, especially the way that our country has become. It was always a melting pot, but now it's even a greater melting pot because we have, mostly we had European people coming over who looked like us, but now looked like, white people. But now, we have all races and creeds, and it's, we truly are a melting pot. And the fact that we still have to deal with these issues that, the first time someone gets angry, the first thing that comes out is, heritage. It's just sad. But
we're also proud to live in that hockey world, right? And it's like it's embarrassing, just, that somebody in our hockey world, doesn't matter where it is, goes down to that level. So
well, that's exactly right. Although, didn't you love it? The people that came out immediately and just condemned it. I did appreciate that. When these kind of things happen, people who normally you wouldn't hear speak all of a sudden are right on top of it because they know this is just absurd, that we shouldn't have this. So
I agree totally.
So I don't know how much time we got here. Well, we got a little bit of time. I want to talk a little bit about the Penguins, just because I was looking at their statistics, and they've won 16 of their last 18. Wow. And when you look at this team this year, they had Crosby hurt, they had Malkin hurt, they've had Gunsel hurt, they had a bad bout of COVID where lots of people got it. Letang had it pretty bad. Casey DeSmith, their backup goalie, has really struggled. Yeah. And we're using our backups more this year in the NHL, and yet they have the 5th best record in the league. And what's forgotten is they had the 5th best record in the league last year too. So, and at the beginning of the year, I thought they were going to take a half step backward.
Oh, I agree totally. Yeah, starting off the season without Malkin and Crosby for sure. Yeah, and wasn't it last year there was some noise about firing the coach there too? Like, man, he's got to playing a huge role in that.
Although I don't know, where that noise came from. Like, we didn't see like Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman or any of those people reporting that. We did see speculation about it, but I think sometimes that people just sort of stick the circumstances in a formula and spit out, well, the coach is in trouble. Where it's not really being considered. Mike Sullivan's a great coach. A couple of things about him, though, that are interesting. One of my favorite stories about him was told to me by Jim Rutherford when he had made a bunch of moves in the offseason dictated by salary cap concerns, and he called Mike Sullivan to talk about it with him. And he said, he got Mike on the phone. He said, look, I'm just going to have to lay it straight that, I'm going to have to make some moves here because of salary cap. It's not things I want to do, but that's just the way it is. And I say, hey, Jimmy, do I still got Crosby and Malkin? And Jimmy said, yeah. He says, well, then I'm okay. Now, I just like that kind of sense of humor about it. And the other thing is, I like to remind people, I have talked to multiple players, at least 3, probably 3 or 4, who had, Sullivan used to be Tortorella's right-hand man.
Yeah.
You think? Right. And I've had those players tell me that Sullivan was a lot tougher to deal with than Tortorella.
Yes, you said that before. Yeah. That's interesting.
So, that he's hard on you, that he pushes you. And
the other end of the spectrum there is Philadelphia. Man, they can't, I hate to say it because Chuck Fletcher's a good guy, the general manager there, but man, that has not worked out well for him.
No, and they look like a lost cause to me.
Yeah. It was like 2 weeks ago where Bobby Clark came out really attacking the job that Hextall had made, the previous GM, who now is in Pittsburgh.
Totally. To me, I saw that as total nonsense.
Yeah. I wonder if he was sent out, because he's a loyal Philadelphia Flyer.
Right.
I wonder if he was sent out there to protect what's going on there right now, right? Saying they took Patrick in the draft.
I'm sure. Do you think they'd really trade Claude Giroux?
Well, at this point, what would be the return for him? Like, is there much left in the tank for him?
Oh, I think he'd be pretty good. I mean, for a rental, for sure.
I don't know. I just lately I just haven't seen him as a player that he certainly is the player that he was before. Now, maybe it's a fresh start, gets him someplace else, and he plays better. But I don't know. I just think like the whole like the stories we heard from last year was that it was a country club. This year they bring in all those defensemen to try to. And I thought I liked those trades. We both did. I thought those were good trades, good moves. They get really bolster the defense. But man, that was it seems like the culture there is just gone. The old Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, obviously it's not the old Philadelphia Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies from the 70s and 80s. But I mean, that team just doesn't have any culture there at all right now. It doesn't seem like so.
Yeah, I mean, Giroux has 33 points in 38 games. He's had 14 goals. He had 43 and 54 last year. I mean, that was a kind of a poor year, but he's really been kind of the same kind of player for a lot of years. 20 early 20s in the goals, and then a lot of assists, and and so forth. But I don't know. Okay, I'm back. Okay. I don't think that it's time for the Flyers to rebuild. When you've got Provorov, and they brought in Ryan Ellis, who obviously has been hurt, so that really hurt two players because they brought him in to give Provorov kind of license to do what he does. Much like Roman Josi could do what he needed to do because he had Ryan Ellis. So that really kind of hurt two players. And they've got some players on that. Farabee's a good player. He's hurt now.
And then they got right because the rebuilding. You got Carter Hart in net, who's supposed to be the goaltender for now and for the future.
Yeah.
Has he really? I mean, I'm looking at their goal differential. It's like minus 39.
He hasn't been the problem. He was part of the problem last year, but I've watched a number of their games. Like, I don't think he hasn't saved them, but I think he's just demoralized. And this is the way I put it to someone was asking me about it, and I said, I was pretty sure the Edmonton Oilers would love to have Carter Hart.
Very true. Yeah, that's
he's still in his early 20s. He started early. There are guys his age that haven't even gotten their first shot yet, and he's been in the league 3 seasons.
So true. But it's just, I guess I'm looking at the Bobby Clark thing. I'm thinking, okay, he doesn't come out there and say that stuff unless he's sent out there on a mission, right?
Yeah,
so he's going to try to blame it. Like, they're acknowledging this is a mess right now, and they're trying to blame it on Ron Hextall, saying that he could have drafted. The scouts wanted to draft Makar instead of Nolan Patrick. Those kinds of things. Again, those were planned things. Okay, so what is that saying? They're saying, okay, we're not very good right now. So what's the answer? I mean, I hate to say this because Chuck Fletcher is a good guy, but it didn't work out well for him in Minnesota as general manager, and it certainly hasn't worked out well for him. His moves and whether it's just bad luck on his part, but it just seems like he doesn't have that magic touch that some of these GMs have. No,
that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, anyway, we've probably gone on as long as we can go today, and I'll have to leave the witness protection program here shortly.
It is interesting. It's kind of intriguing. Like, people are like looking at it the first time, they go, "Wow, who is that guy?" Like Sean Connery or something like that.
Sean Connery is deceased, so.
So hold on one sec, though. So I passed on the information that woman falls asleep to your voice. So are you taking this in a positive way or a negative way?
I don't know. I'll have to ask my wife.
Okay. That's true.
All right. Anyway, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll have a guest on Wednesday. We're going to talk Rangers hockey. We're going to get into which we talked about in the last show, which I think is a great topic about whether the Rangers should make a move or not.
And they did put Tenorti on waivers too. So
so it looks like they're getting ready for something. We'll see. But anyway, if you want to read me, I'm at DetroitHockeyNow.com and also HockeyBuzz.com.
And if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. Again, that's radio.co at 365 Sports. See everybody on Wednesday.